when I open the paper and smell it, it reminds me of my dad.
Yeah.
I totally feel that.
For sure. And my dad was a really big, he was hardcore into hash and herb, and he was one of the guys that he quit Central Michigan University the last semester with 3 credits left because one of his brothers in his fraternity said, let's go to the Kabul Trail over in Afghanistan, right? And he was like, what's that? And he's like, oh, dude, we get to go in the hash area. And
we're Jug Dealers, we're the podcast you need in your feed, teaching the game like you never seen. Jared, Gabe, Rambo, true OGs, masters of the globe, set your mind free. From Denver, Colorado, where the Dank is green, we set the data points for the SOPs. Jug Dealers Podcast, yes indeed.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Jug Dealers Podcast, where we talk about all things cannabis and lifestyle related, brought to you by the good people at 5E, and now available at JugDealers.shop and JugDealers.net. Today we are here with Jake Greba, aka MidnightRoots, aka Stone Owl. So without further ado, let's have our guest on.
hey,
Jake, how are you?
good. Thanks for having me on, Dave. Appreciate it.
Hell yeah, it was really good to see you last week.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming out, finally seeing what I got going on and tasting the flavors and hanging out on the farm.
Super cool, man. Super cool. We've known each other for a while. We met each other at ADSI. But Jake's got a good story, so let's get into it. So Jake, we like to on this podcast kind of trace a little of the history, talk about things that you do, what's made you in the industry, and then talk about what you have going on nowadays. So a little bit about your history, where you started, where you grew up. So kind of take us away.
Okay. With that generalization, sure. MidnightRoots is where I'm in Michigan. I started MidnightRoots in 2014 after I won my first Cannabis Cup in Michigan at the 2014 Cup in Clio, which I won for the Catfish. I started it. My dad died closely after the win. So my dad was one of the guys that really got me into cannabis and really showed me his entire life that he really believes in the plant and basically revolved his entire life around it.
Did your parents smoke cannabis in the house?
No, in front of me my entire life. That was never an issue. They smoked 100% of the time. They smoked as much as I did.
Hey everybody, just a heads up, we are doing a pre-Black Friday sale on the JugDealers.shop website. It is either 20% off all base nutrients or buy 2, get 1 free of either or the Holy Grail, which is Winter Ruby and Carbo, or the IPM trio of EcoWorks, Multi, and Russet. So again, that's 20% off all base nutrients or buy 2, get 1 free of either the Holy Grail trio, which is Winter Ruby and Carbo, or the IPM trio, which is Multi, Russet, and EcoWorks. Now, back to the show.
And my wife at the time said, you know good weed. I sold weed for a long time, right? My parents sold weed. I sold weed. They're like, why don't you try it? So I grabbed the blueberry plant and I grabbed I grabbed the Indiana bubble gum and I grabbed an OG18 plant from somebody and I grew it just as good or better than the person that I was getting it from. So it was like, I just never stopped from there. Like, why wouldn't I do it? So it was kind of, then that's when I taught my dad, right? My dad's wife had cancer at the time. We were looking for something to help her out with. And she finally said, okay, Dan, Jake can teach you how to grow in the basement. We did 1 light, did 3 plants under 1 light. And she literally died the day that he had his first harvest. So
wow.
I never got to really see any benefits from it or anything. But that's kind of how I transitioned from music to the growing, right? It was nerve wracking to grow at the time. We all know that. You know what I mean? I still was growing before it ever went medicinal in Michigan, right? It was still illegal. So it was, I knew it was going to be medicinal. I think I was number 60 to get my card, right? Like we were right line day one.
Wow.
It was waiting for it. Right.
Nice. So were you part of the caregiver days, I'm assuming?
Oh yeah. I mean, day one, I had my card, right?
So you were starting to grow for other people at that point in that market?
Yeah, I mean, already I had a group of people that really, from when I went to Central Michigan, I only smoked really, really high end. A lot of people don't know what it is even like. Or even back then in 98, 97, people didn't really know high end herb. And I had access 100%. I had access to some people that grew really, really, really good herb. Like they grew themselves. So I always knew really good herb. And when I started growing and I started doing it, that's pretty much why I did it, because I wanted to be able to grow that. And I was able to. I learned really quick. It came really quick. Taught my family. Everybody in my family started growing. And it was just on from there. When my first stuff that we entered, I took to it really easy, Well,
I definitely remember your flower at the ADSI, and it's incredible. So the three that you mentioned, those are kind of part of your building blocks in your stable that you breed with, correct?
Yeah, I still have both. I don't have the bubble gum anymore, but I do have the blueberry still. It's the O2 cut. It's the O2 Dutch Passion, DJ Short, Midwest Best, TMB cut, we call it, Detroit Blueberry. It's
I know TMB. I was trying to see him when I was there.
Yeah, he's a killer, man. I always learned a lot from that guy. I met that guy through the same way that any good grower would. Like I was at the 2000, I think it was 12 U.S. Cup, and River Rock. Remember River Rock? They had an upstairs booth thing, and you could kind of go up the side and climb upstairs. And I went up there, and Dead Presidents were up there hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
I was up there with Tony Veruza and Ernie and all those guys. And this guy named Grant brought me out there, and we were all hanging out. And Kerry was there, GMB, and we're sitting there, and I was smoking some blueberry, and he hit it, and he was like, "What is this? Is this blueberry?" And he immediately and he was like, "Oh my God!" And he just started looking at it and was like, "This is my blueberry. What are you talking? Where'd you get this?" And then I knew his buddy Mason, who basically kind of taught me how to grow, if you would say it right. He showed me what to do, back in the day, and it was great. I pulled out some of the bud. I showed it to him. He was like, "Oh my God, this is it!" And it was awesome. It was one of those moments. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, TMB's the homie. I actually met him at Fish Vegas Halloween.
He's a fish head.
I think huge fish head. But I think he was smoking some type of flower behind me that was like really awesome. And I turn around, I'm like, "What's going on, bro?" And we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, he knows what's up. He knows what's up.
He's part of Scott's crew.
Yeah, he's a real motherfucker. He's a real guy.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Love that couch. Shout out TMB. You'll always be the homie.
Yeah, he hooked me up with the end, right? Yeah, it was good to see that. Because, some terpenes bring back memories. So whenever I smell that, brings back my dad, right? And yesterday was the 10th anniversary of his passing. So it's like a big thing talking about him and the blueberry and everything. It's interesting. It's funny how terpenes do that. They really play on memories.
100%. I actually just had an article from Soma about how it associates memories and stuff like that. Ironically enough, I just posted a picture of my dad from a newspaper, and it's from 1980. And when I open the paper and smell it, it reminds me of my dad.
Yeah.
I totally feel that.
For sure. And my dad was a really big, he was hardcore into hash and herb, and he was one of the guys that he quit Central Michigan University the last semester with 3 credits left because one of his brothers in his fraternity said, let's go to the Kabul Trail over in Afghanistan, right? And he was like, what's that? And he's like, oh, dude, we get to go in the hash area and you meet all these people. And, you know, he's like, I'll go with like $60. And I decided to just roll over with like 7 people and, you know, and traveled the trail that there's a bandit of Kabul. There's a couple of really good books about it, right? It's an early smuggling trail. The Grateful Dead went on it. Marley, a lot of people went on it, talked about it. It was really, the Kabul Trail is where he did it. He met some really interesting guys over there. He learned how to make hash oil, right? And he like my favorite story from him was he was walking through, you know, my dad was like a hippie dude, long hair, no shirt, no shoes, walking through Afghanistan. They had never seen like white people like that. This is 71, right? So like people were touching his skin, he said, like picking at his hair and stuff. And he's like, and this Mercedes pulls up and tells him to jump in. And this guy with a tin, he literally had a tin with like some green, black stuff. And they were taking it off a pin and smoking it off of like a pin and stuff, or wiping it on joints and smoking it like that. It was like hash oil. Like we made open blasting in, you know, 2008 and shit. You know? It was the same type of thing. So they took him up to the area where you buy hash from, like up in the hills where literally there was Mujahideen at the time. And they put out these like hash bags. They were like this big. He said it was like out of a movie, and he throws down all these different hashes. And he's like, wow, this is awesome, you know? And they're like, how much do you want of it? And he's like, I'll take a couple grams of that. And I'll take a couple of grams of it. And they're like, a couple grams?
They're like, we sell by the pound.
Yeah, he's like, you don't sell you take a couple grams, right? And he was laughing. They're like, what are you doing here, man? Right? And he's like, I got this. And he pulled out LSD. And they had never seen LSD. Like, yeah, but heard of LSD. So he had like really good window pane LSD, like really good shit from back in the day. And so they took him to, I guess, what they would consider the guru of the Mujahideen at the time, right? And he was the only one of the 7 people that he was with that actually would go up, because he couldn't speak the language. So there was only the dude in the Mercedes that kind of spoke broken English, right? So he's like, I want you to come. I want you to meet this guy. And he gets up to this guru guy and who had like a line down the hill, he said, of where people would just come up and he would just like touch them, you know, just lay on hands. And that was his job. He would just touch them. He was a healer, a spiritual man. And he came up and the guy introduced him. And I guess the guy just sat there and looked at my dad for like a good 5 minutes. And my dad's like, here, pulled it out. And the guy just like took a drink.
Oh, man.
LSD. And my dad's like, whoa, 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 whoa. He's like, you're only going to drop, bro. Like, what are you doing? And he's like, just downed it. And he put it back. And everybody around them took a little drop of it. And he said they tripped for like 3 days. He didn't speak to anybody. He said the guy on the second day gave my dad a foot massage. And he said the people in the area like started bowing down and like crying because like this guy doesn't give you a foot massage, right? Like he doesn't touch people like that, right? Like give you a foot massage is like, whoa,
wow.
Right? Like the Pope give a massage or something, right? So, and then he said at the end of the foot massage, he looked at him and he goes, this is how I am all day. He goes, what I am happy for is that you brought something that allowed all my people to see what I see every day. And my dad's like, wow. Oh, yeah. So, and all the people around them were tripping because my dad's just like, here, take a little bit. You know what I mean? And
bro, what a story.
So they, on the 4th day, they took him and showed him how to make the hash oil, which they took him into this room. And then they basically took big bags of keef. This big bags of keef, right? It's outdoor pollen. And they were beating the drum things and everything. They were beating it, getting all the keef. And then they took it and they went down to the gas station and bought ethanol. So they would do like a basic ethanol wash. And they'd bring it back up. And they would just wash the keef through the ethanol. And then they put it on the roofs of the buildings, he said. And then just let it purge off like we did in open blasting and shit like that, except for butane or whatever we were using. It was ethanol.
Wow.
And it was like a kind of a basic rough RSO, right? You know? like an ethanol, and then they let it burn off, and then they would just smoke that. And he was taking that back and forth from California and Michigan and they'd bring back LSD like every other month. They would sew it into their quilt pants and shit. And there was no TSA back then and shit, so they were just, it was no big deal. They could come back and they were supposed to sell the hash oil, but they would just smoke it all the time. So he never really was a good businessman. My dad was not a good businessman, right?
Bro, what a story, dude. That's incredible.
We were talking to some people trying to confirm that he was one of the first people to bring actual hash oil into the United States or bring it, because, he would bring things. Nobody saw it. Nobody ever saw it. They knew water hash and hash, but
dude, how many Americans are hanging out in Afghanistan in 1971? Right? Like, come on.
Yeah, it was a pretty big risk for him to go over there, right? Every single one of the people he was with, except for him and this girl, Sue, got arrested. A couple of the people have like stories of them breaking out of Turkish prisons. Like one guy, was pulled off a bus and they told him to spit on the ground. And they said, you got hash in your spit, threw him in prison for like 2 years. Like most of the people he was with got thrown in prison somewhere. But my dad did. Like, I don't know what he was doing, but he was doing God's work.
Bro, he had an angel on his side.
Yeah, he was smoking some pretty nice shit back in the day. And so, it was always like that. He always had good access. He was the guy that would bring Bob Seger weed and stuff like that. You know what I mean? The guy that would provide. So I always knew really good weed. I didn't really know bad weed. So they, till brickweed came in for a couple of years there. And we all had to smoke brickweed for a couple of years. So then the BC buds came back. The BCs came in and the kind of thing.
I'll be honest with you, bro. I didn't realize how close Detroit was to Canada. Like I'm walking in Belle Isle Park and I'm like, Canada's right there.
They swim to it. People do all the time. Try to you ain't going to get hit. They got the sonar, right? But people try to ride jet skis over all the time. And, it's funny. You can literally throw a rock there.
Yeah, it's crazy. I had no idea how close it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually the only place where Canada is below the United States because Windsor is below Detroit, wraps down below Detroit. So it's actually below Michigan. So fun fact for you.
So obviously you started MidnightRoots in 2014, but I know you well enough to know that you probably started reading on your own before you had the seed company for a while.
I was growing for a long time. It really came because I won some cups, right? To be honest with you. And I wanted to reverse the catfish. I wanted to do something with it. I wanted to learn how to breed. And I remember, going to Don and Aaron of DNA and saying, hey, man, the catfish is the OG18. Basically, it was hit with another OG18, but it's fucking an OG18, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, can I reverse it? And they're like, no, that's not cool. They're like, so why don't you cross it? And I'm like, sounds good. Cool. So I went and met Leaf Doctor, who was a guy that was doing a lot of shit around Detroit too. He was a breeder and he had been doing some stuff. And he had a male from his Headcrafter Seeds, which was a OG18 Fire OG cross. So it was a Fire OG. And I still use that thing. It's the best. It's a really fucking dominant male that gives great OG structure, great stretch, great density, a lot of OG traits, but it allows the flavor of the mom to come through. So, which is really awesome. And he used it to make a couple of really good cup winning cuts himself. And he said, this is basically what you're looking for. So let's hit that. And that's what made the smoke catfish, right?
And that's a true male.
Yeah. So they're all of them are like the smoke catfish seeds. All my shit is regulars, right? I've never done a feminized seed line. I've basically just taken my own seeds and from that line and have just kept running with it, right? So I just my Sunshine Kush is the Sunshine 4 that I won with, crossed by the Fire 18, and then I ran that down, and the Tahoe OG crossed with it. I ran that line a little bit. My Howling Diablo, which is the Ghost OG, crossed with it, and then the Catfish. I like OGs, I smoke a fucking lot, right? And I like OG. So I like OG and chem, and so I walk those lines a lot, and I just want to breed what I smoke, basically, So
yeah, one thing I notice about your stuff is you're not really following the hype train in any way, shape, or form, bro. You're and not for nothing, the flower you gave me when I saw you is delicious.
I like it. Don't get me wrong. I care less about the hype train because, I respect, let's just say gelato or Skittles or some of these, right? I have a really, really, really good ice cream cake cut that we crossed because I like that gelato. It's beautiful. I have a really nice couple of crosses that I've been doing with the Sunshine Kush, crossed by the Wilson, crossed by the Skittles, which is, a really nice one that came out tasting like juicy fruit. I really like those profiles. They're super special. And, hype is hype. I like to smoke weed. And I'll smoke Skittles, I'll smoke these other ones and stuff, but I always smoke OG. I want weed that tastes like weed, right? I mean, lemons are lemons, oranges are orange, grapes are grapes. You can get those, and you can get cotton candy grape, grapes. You can get lemon grapes. I have an apple orchard, so you can get really cool orange apples. You can get pear apples. You can get all these different flavors. But man, I've got 20 strains in my pocket. I'm still 90% of the time go for an OG. So it's really, I just want to find flavors that are around those profiles that are the nuanced flavors of those, right? So it's like with the smoked catfish type of thing you're talking about before, where we were talking about, I want something that is new and interesting, and I'm not trying to find the newest candy, because I don't smoke it much. That's about the only thing, they're nice in pre-rolls, because, or if and stuff like that. But I'll hit it every now and then. But Jesus, I want some really nice terps. I like GMO. I like chem. I like OG. I like those nasty, ugly flavors that a lot of people wouldn't understand why you smoke it. And it's because it's amazing. And the high is perfect. It's creative,
How long do you like to take GMO?
GMO is a long one. There's two GMOs, right? So there's really two. There's the cookie type of GMO, and then there's a longer, stretchier GMO, right?
Okay. I'll be honest with you. Speak to me more on the two GMOs, because I think I've grown the taller one that goes, 70 if you're lucky.
70, 75, 80 even. Fuck, it just keeps stretching, right? The other one is like a denser, harder one. Well, one that like Mike Tyson calls the toad. You know what I mean?
I'm familiar with the toad.
Yeah, and it's the one that's kind of like passed around because its density is better. So when you look at it, you pick it up, you're like, it smells like vomit.
Were they both selected by Skunk Master Flex?
I don't know. I'm not 100%. I've grown both of them, right? And personally, I kind of might like the denser one just because the other one is just longer and it's harder to grow. So you know what I mean? But the other one's got a little better hatch wash, right?
Oh, I'm gonna be honest with you. Partner and I, we had a disagreement about it today, and I think we were growing two different GMOs.
There's two, yeah.
And I never realized there were two.
Yeah, the stretchier one is okay, and I usually use it for hatch, or like I said, hatch, because GMO is a hash fucking plant, right? It dumps, and I fucking love the hash from it. It's the best rosin you can get, It's just amazing. And personally, I don't care, you know what I mean? But I'll take GMO hash rosin all day over almost.
It's my island hash.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's exactly. So that's why people grow it. You usually don't grow it for flower that much. You know what I mean?
It takes a guy from Michigan to let me know there are two different GMOs.
I had the longer, stringier one for a long time.
That's the only one I've ever grown.
And I didn't know there was the denser one, which is the one that most of the people grow because it's nicer. It's denser, harder. It kind of grows colorful little dense.
I think the thing I noticed most about his is it has more of a onion profile, like a sweet onion profile.
some people used to call it the garlic mushroom onions, right? And that's why people would do it, right? They'd be GMO, garlic mushroom onions. It wasn't what it was from, right? But that was a rumor, just like ocean grown OG and shit like that, right? It was like,
Bro, I feel bad now. I've grown literally hundreds of pounds of GMO, and it was the other friggin' GMO.
You gotta ask for the dense one. You gotta ask for the really dense, hard one. Is what some people don't know. I'm from Michigan. I've seen, I was there when the fucking it just came around and stuff, So, now it's like the Blue Dream stuff, right? Oh, GMO.
Bro, I still love it. And I agree with you. It has kind of gained that Blue Dream moniker. But for me, it's just so consistent. It hits all the boxes. Maybe you're a good question or a good person for this question. I think it's better than its parents, but I think it's one of the few that's better than its parents. So what genetics out there do you think are better than the parents, if any?
Well, that's one I would have to think about for a second, right? What one?
We might have to get back to you on that one. But it's funny because GMO is the only one I really think of.
I would think GMO for sure, right? I mean, that hands down, right? I'm just thinking of the ones that I grow right now, right? I'm looking back onto what I have. I could name stuff that I've grown, right? That I could say, oh yeah, I love the Prodigy better than the mom because it has added density or added yield or added structure that the mom doesn't have, but I got the taste out of it. Or I found one, right? You know what I mean? So
let me ask you a question as a breeder. If you have certain traits that you like from the parent that you're trying to pass on to the progeny, how do you take it the direction that you want to go? Is there a way that you kind of steer it?
You're talking, pheno hunting is the easiest way to say that. Keep finding phenos that express the traits that you desire and breeding with them down the line, right?
You take them back to the original parent?
That's about the only thing I would do. So, for example, like my Sunshine Kush, right? I just keep finding better Sunshine Kushes, and where I find and so I really like where my Sunshine Kush came out. I've hit the male back to the Sunshine Mom and found an even better Sunshine Kush, and now I'm getting it to other plants and stuff like that. I haven't taken anything really longer than like F4, to be honest with you. I tend to pheno hunt a lot and then find terpene profiles I'm looking for, because that's why I'm breeding for is that jackpot, that F1 really. I like to crack a bunch and find original things. The Sunshine Kush was the only one that I was really trying to emulate the mom. Maybe my gas leak because the Tahoe OG is really finicky, lanky Tahoe, but I love the Tahoe flavor. It's probably one of my favorite OG flavors.
Hands down, bro. Hands down. Those burnt rubber terps are incredible.
But it's hard to... I want to match that flavor and then increase the structure, right? It's lanky. It's like the Skittles, right? Everybody's like, give me the fucking RS11 or something like that. Give me, the Rainbow Belts because it's the Skittles, but better growing, right? You know what I mean? Everybody was looking for improvements on the mom, right? And that's how I find it because everybody just wants a pheno in the end, right? Like I can't say I crossed down, 11, to an F11 or something, and I'm looking for a stability of a mom to get it. I find phenos and I grow it, right? And I'm not the biggest prolific breeder. I breed what I want. I find it and pheno hunt it. I'll just be honest. You know what I mean? I'm not going to take credit like I'm Archive or some of these guys that have done super long hunts and stuff. Pheno hunting is really what I like to do, No,
and look, you have some really, really cool stuff in your stable. So if you start with winners, you're going to finish with winners.
Yeah, right. That's kind of the only way that you can answer that, right?
Oh yeah. Let's talk about chocolate, because I love your chocolate. And the first time you gave it to me, I was blown away. And whenever anybody says chocolate and cannabis, or even just, I think the stuff you gave me originally didn't have any cannabis in it. But we were at Nick's last week. He had some, reminded me how delicious it is. And let's talk about it, because it's amazing.
I mean, I've been doing chocolate since day one, right? Of it when I started growing. You know, I was making RSO. We were doing stuff with the remainder of our plants, right? And I had a bunch of RSO around, and I wanted to start making chocolates. You know, my sister got cancer in 2016, and for a while there, she needed a lot of RSO to kind of help the pain. So I would put it into chocolate, and chocolate's got like anandamine, which is this binds with a lipid. It's got another factor in it, like mangoes do, and it actually helps improve the intake of it, and it has other benefits to it, especially dark chocolate. Got some really good benefits. So that was a quick way for my sister to get chocolate. And then really, I just love chocolate myself. Just to be honest with you, nothing other than that, other than the fact that I just was looking for something to do with my stuff. And then when I started to learn to make distillate, and to be honest with you, because my sister was trying to take a lot of RSO, and we were giving it to her like suppositories, right? Because she had cancer, right? It was hard to take a gram. It's hard to take a gram or two of cancer to do like the Rick Simpson, what he would say, gram for 90 days. So she was doing, and then it's not that clean. I mean, RSO with, you know, even an isopropyl extraction. I mean, it's dark because there's all the vegetative plant material in there and stuff. And I know even Tommy Chong had problems with it. He had mentioned that he was taking it as a suppository and thought that he gotten rectal cancer because of the bad RSO he was using in suppositories. So I started to learn how to make distillate. So it was cleaner, and so she could take it and know there was no impurities in it, right? And so that's really how my evolution came. And now you know, now I just kept on with the chocolate. I have 14 flavors MidnightRoots does, and we're very highly regarded in Michigan as one of the best-selling and best-tasting chocolates. I take a lot of pride in what I do, if it's breeding or pheno hunting or growing, and I take a lot of pride in my chocolates. So, and I stick to one thing. You know what I mean? It sounds funny, but like when I breed, when I grow, I like what I like, and I want to just kind of like branch off kind of a little bit at one time until I go, kind of playing risk. You don't just put everything out. You just slowly branch out and keep a good home base. So I do my chocolates, and we have full moons now, which are like 200 milligram, little small 1.5 inch discs. So it's for people that don't want to take a whole chocolate bar, like people with neuropathy or people with cancer or people who want to just take a small disc. I have people that eat 3 or 4 a day. I can't do that, but some people want 800 milligrams a day, and they can just take that and melt it into a coffee, and it's doing really well. It's taking really well, and it's one of our better sellers too. So it's I'm just sticking to chocolate right now. We're going to start enrolling products pretty soon here. We've been really sticking to what we're good at, what we have. Now we do pre-rolls too, because I've been trying to get, my flower into a lot of different shops and metric genetics. I've been getting my genetics and squeezing them into some shops. So we do the chocolate and the pre-rolls basically. I don't know. I think chocolate is the best delivery method for cannabis, to be honest with me.
Most delicious.
If it's other gummies or chocolates, I just can't do gummies, right? Like, I've just always been a chocolate guy. I never even tried
Gummies make me break out right between the eyes.
Do they really?
Like it's really weird. I still break out like a teenager right between the eyes if I eat gummies. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, I do these things a lot, right? I got my big ass cannons that I roll a lot and that I've been doing for a while.
Yeah, you were one of the first guys. Now that we're digging in, You were one of the first guys to do the Megars, as I remember, weren't you?
Yeah, 2016, I won, best pre-roll in Michigan, which got me to that. You remember when the High Times did 2 World Cups? They did like one in Jamaica, and then they were going to do it next year in Jamaica, but it ended up being in Sacramento. So we ended up going to the second one because we won the year before, and I won 3rd place in the World Cups with that. It was, I don't even like to say the dude's name because he fucked me over pretty bad, but
you don't have to.
You know what I mean? It was with the Megar, and it was like a leaf wrapped, and we'd make a shell, right? And we packed the shell. So we made it with like really nice black leaves, right? And they were actual cannabis leaves. So we would extract the chlorophyll and we'd form it into a shell and put rose tips on the end of it and lay it out really nice and pack it. We used my flour, which pretty much is the secret to a good pre-roll. It's the flour inside it, right?
I don't disagree.
You know, it's not the outside rice paper or the filter tip you have or anything like that. So, yeah. So, I mean, I smoke. And like I said, my mom and my dad, we've always smoked a lot of weed. They always rolled 2-gram joints. My dad would always roll 1 1/4 joints. My mom would take 2 1 1/4 papers and put them together and roll joints, right? So I always...
The zigzags are the tops, or the easy widers.
The oranges, right? You know, they were always the oranges, right?
The jobs, yeah.
Yeah.
The JOBs.
And so...
From old school, you know all those papers.
The papers with the metal in it, the metal wire that you could...
The wire, so you could smoke it down to the end, dude? Yeah, dude, that's the real deal.
Yeah. So as a joints, you know?
Oh, 100%. It's evolved so much. It's really interesting to hear you talk about your dad with the stuff from the early 70s, though. You know, that's full circle. You know, it's good to see second generation, you know?
I mean, I'm going to keep it going. I'm not going anywhere. I smoke so much weed. It's a big part of my life. If it hasn't provided me a life for last 20 years, like I it's a sacrament. It's more than a flower. Like I said, you know, we can get deep in, you know, to come from another damn planet or something, but it's the most beneficial planet and plant on the planet, hands down. It's nothing.
I don't disagree, man. You know, if you dig into why the Rastas believed in it, it was, you know, the plant that is here to save the nation and provide for all the people. So even if you can't eat it, you can use it as, you know, currency. So,
yeah, I mean, the Buddha ate 1 hemp seed a day for 7 years, right? And when he lived in the little, in the thing, it provided him all the nutrients that he needed was 1 hemp seed, they said, right?
You know, so what other projects do you have going on in Michigan? Anything special?
Well, I'm doing a lot of breeding projects, right? As we were talking about. So I'm doing a lot of music projects, and that's pretty much where I go back and forth, right? I will go back and forth from music to cannabis, and I like to combine the two, right? Right now, I'm working pretty heavy with this other company, Midnight Smoking, along with that too. And what that is, it kind of takes off of what I used to do with the Megars, right? We used to make shells, and then I transferred over from the shells to make hemp shells. So we would provide, you know, it was basically like the same thing, but it was hemp with a filter with a wood tip in it. And then now I'm making these filter tips, Midnight Smoking, you know, and I'm doing rice papers. We're doing rolling machines and stuff. So basically, we are, you know, supplying the heavy can or hash hole, right? Because it's kind of evolved out of packing the cones to now professional rollers, rolling hash holes. You see hash hole bars at events now, professional rollers. They have professional rolling competitions. It's a big deal with rolling, right? So we're kind of, that's pretty much what I smoke, is either these big joints where I'll put, you know, 0.5 gram of rosin in it and call it a donut or a wormhole or whatever you want to call it. So really it's come down to that. So we're supporting the rolling community, and there is a massive rolling community in Michigan. You know, I know it's California heavy and Colorado pretty heavy, but it's pretty big in Michigan. Like, you know, they're doing competitions and
I'm going to be honest, man. I think Michigan is it's really a toss up for me between Michigan and California right now. But I think you guys are both really paving the way in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, I go to California all the time. I love California. It's beautiful, beautiful area, especially Northern California. It's amazing. I just can't deal with California. And there's a lot of...
California is great. There's just too many Californians. Are we going to get banned for that? Probably.
But I mean, it is.
I'm going to get age restricted for saying that.
I personally smoked better weed in Michigan. I encountered really, really good weed in California, but a lot of it is outdoor weed. And I mean, you get good indoor weed, but a lot of it's outdoor weed. And I mean, outdoor weed is great. It's some of it's the best on earth. But
dude, I got pre-rolls at that Metric Mash that were pretty decent. Like just, hey, hand it out, run of the mill, whatever. Not as terrible as some of the pre-rolls I've had at some of the events.
Michigan's not bad, man. I always say it's the best. I mean, I have many reasons for it. I mean, honestly, I think it's one, the humidity. We have the best water. I mean, we've got the most fresh water ever. California is like, you can't turn a sprinkler. So, I mean, how are you getting this really good, fresh, clean water? You're using sewage water and stuff with pharmaceuticals in it. I've got fresh, it's
recycled. It's recycled.
Yeah. So great. I'm not talking shit about it. It's, but it is what it is. And Michigan's got great water. It's got great humidity. And it's got great temperature. I think we have great cure. Like, for example, Colorado, you take your bag open and within, 5 minutes, it's dry, right? You got the Colorado dry, right? California is just a little bit more humid. I've noticed it's harder to dry and get cured because there's a lot of humidity in the air. Comes off of it, comes off the ocean. And Michigan's got a really good agricultural area.
Darren and I talking about the terroir. Yeah, and how different places have a different terroir, So I think I would agree that Michigan, probably has good terroir for cannabis.
Yeah, we have great agriculture. We're always known for agriculture. So, I mean, 100%. And then we have great people. You know what I mean? We have a really, really solid middle class, car worker, biker, survivalist type of mentality out here. Very, very Midwestern, very kind, but not fuck around with. And they don't take bullshit. So it's you can pass a lot of bullshit on in California. You know what I mean? Like it's a different game out there. I don't want to put it, Michigan, everybody. So if you try to pass off a bag, he calls all his buddies and tells them, Gabe tried to give me a bunk bag of runts or something like that. It's like, what the fuck? And in California, you might be able to get rid of that a little bit. You know what I mean?
Well, and you can make it, I was going to say, you can make it across the bottom of the state in a couple hours. Going up to the UP, it's like a day.
It's a different country out there, man. You know what I mean? That's a whole different area. You can go as fast as you want. It's Autobahn up there. There's no speed limit up there. That's the best. Because you just slide the back roads.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So let me give you a second to promo any of the things you want to promo. Stone Owl, Seed Company, chocolate. Where can people find your products?
I mean, we're at almost every store in Michigan. We have a good 50%, really, for the full moons and the midnight bars, which are my two metric products. I have these on the market too. We call them owls, right? So we have those as well. So you kind of just have to call around your shops, and most of the shops carry us, most of the bigger shops, and a lot of the smaller shops. We're a legacy brand, so I've been doing caregiver shows since day one all the way through. My seeds, Seed Bank Invitational, get seeds here now. You know what I mean? I'm not doing them off my website anymore because the Michigan CRA didn't like me selling seeds. So pretty much get seeds here now and Seed Bank Invitational.
What if people want to see your music?
Midnight Smoking is midnightsmoking.com, which is the tips and the papers and stuff. And then stoneowl.co, right? Is my techno music. Like I've kind of went on from where I was in Malo Diablos doing turntable to the hip hop, and now I've kind of transferred over to techno and house. Recently, I've been starting a new project, kind of a down-tempo dub and bass music, but I do most of my music on Stone Owl, Instagram.
You didn't Twitch or any of that?
MidnightRoots, Midnight.Smoking. There's a lot of imitators out there. There's like 2 fake MidnightRoots pages, but Midnight.Roots is me, and Midnight.Smoking is me. I've only got one for each, and then Stone Owl, one page. You can find my music on Pandora, Stone Owl, Spotify, Apple Music. It's I've got about 28 releases on there, and we're doing a production retreat, which MidnightRoots is sponsoring. So in January 2nd through the 5th, we just announced it. We have a couple of we have Honeycomb, who's a beatbox and dubstep master. He's amazing. He just played Red Rocks last weekend. And we have Kevin Saunderson, and his son Dantiez, who is one of the creators of techno music. He's one of Belleville 3. He is credited with creating techno music. And we're going to be there. We're doing a producer retreat. So it's like, you bring your Ableton laptop, you hang out with about 20 people in the room, and it's kind of like a yoga retreat or something. Twice a day, we sit down and hand out sample packs to everybody, and everybody makes some tracks, and we listen to them all and critique them, and then we do it again, and we listen to them all. So it helps you just learn to put things together, and you're with a lot of inspiring people. Because I'll be honest, since COVID hit, a lot of people have lost their spark. You know what I mean? A lot of musicians specifically, people just, there's no places to go. People aren't going out. People aren't supporting artists anymore. It's really hard to, even if you do throw a show, to do this. So, there is a new generation of kids, and there is a new group of people that are coming up that do have a spark. And especially in Michigan, there's a large group of people. And the group I'm working with is my buddy Garden Boy and his group, the Boredom Fighters Foundation. It's a group that goes to schools, brings instruments in, and they allow the kids to play the instruments. They teach them how to use drum machines, synths, and other instruments, and then make beats on the fly in an after-hours program. So it's just bringing inspirations to kids to get them to do art, to get off their phone, to get out and actually create something, in real time, live, not just typing quotes into AI and getting yourself a song out, to actually make songs. Because, music is a form of communication, right? Just like growing, you know what I mean? I always say that same thing, good growers know what you're doing. You're communicating something with your weed. You're saying something when you spend a lot of time and money and effort on your weed or your song. You're not taking your friends and the people that are, supporting you for granted. You're respecting them as much as you would respect them. You wouldn't sell them bullshit spray packs because, that's, you wouldn't smoke it yourself. I wouldn't touch that shit. I wouldn't, I'd punch my grandma for smoking it or something. You know what I mean? So I want to provide something that is good, whether it be music, whether it be something I like. I'm not going to make something that just gets you to put your hands up. It's thoughtful, intelligent music. Same thing with my seeds. Like you said, not trying to follow the hype as much, man, and just trying to be as real as I can and smoke good weed and find good flavors and find good terps so that when you come over, it's not as, the hype train is hype train, man. It's not as easy as it is to just find a Ruts or just find a Skittles. And that's why it's been a hype train for 8 years, because nobody can find stuff that fucking new.
I mean, here's what I would say, man. Yours stands up to anything I see nowadays. I mean, I was smoking that OG 18 at your crib, and like, as far as the high and the flavor and everything, stands up to any of the new anything. And not for nothing, it's completely different, but it's the same as it's always been.
It's that's the goal, right? To keep it new and fresh, but the same as that you remember it when you won the cup with it, right? Like, I want it to taste the same as it did in 2014, right? When I first got it, I want you to be able to experience it. Because like I said, like, I choose my weed, like, we're talking pheno hunting and we're talking breeding and we're talking like the real secret to what it is. And it, they're like, what is the secret? Like, the real secret is to find terps that provide memories, like we were talking about, like you were saying. And that comes with like how they defined, wine, why they only choose champagne grapes and Zinfandel and Merlot and Chardonnay, and why they only choose that, and why they only choose Ruts and Herb Cream Pie and OG and this and that, and why this new hype trains don't just appear, because they're not providing you with that fucking memorable experience that you want to recreate, or you want to, in 20 years that you'll smoke that joint and go, oh man, bro, I remember in 2024 when we were sitting on my back porch and I first smoked this joint. Like, remember when you told me that? Remember when you smoked that? We're like, yeah. That'd be like Chris Farley and shit. Like, oh,
no, you are 100% right. And you really captured it, with eloquence in the way that you said it, because there are, I say to people all the time, like, I smoked a vegan Afgoo in 2014. I remember it. I remember IROC's Flow OG. I remember your Sunshine. The smoked catfish that we found from your seeds. It is, and not only is it a memorable smell, it reminds you of other things. And I think that's really where you kind of nailed it, is that it does take you to a place or a time or a certain memory. I'm sure, like I was saying with that newspaper and my dad, like as soon as I open it and smell it, I smell my pop's pipe tobacco, black, Captain Black. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you saying that, because we do have an episode coming up about terpenes, and that is one of the things I want to touch on, is how it can really elicit certain emotions and feelings.
More than anything else, man. And I think cannabis is to the extreme. There's nothing on the planet that has as many terpenes. Grapes, apples coming close, right? You know what I mean? I mean, grapes, there's 80 to 90 terpenes. We're talking 400 to 500 terpenes in cannabis that we know of, right? Not including microterpenes and all the little things. I mean, there's just so much to it. Cannabis, because it's a flower and just different, just like apples, and like I like to say it because I have an apple orchard, apples and grapes, though. But I mean, realistically, it is the best memory too. I mean, you sit there and you do aromatherapy and stuff, and like aromatherapists will be like, okay, smell some peppermint oil to get brightened up, or sell some limonene or some lavender oil to go to sleep or something like this. But man, there's nothing that comes to going like, hey man, smoke some Chem 4. Like, in your head, I can picture the terp. I can picture the flavor in my head of what I'm going to smell if I smoked just some perfectly done and ripened, cured out Chem D, Chem 4, the real cuts that people don't even know exist anymore. Like the other day, I gave away the original Gorilla Glue to my buddy, right? I still hold the Gorilla Glue. That's one of those blue dreams that people just kind of like, let go for years, right? They had that whole trademark, and they had those lawsuit shit that they were coming after people. It was a bunch of weirdness, right? So everybody's like, fuck this Gorilla Glue and just let it go. I kept it, of course, right? Why the fuck wouldn't you? It's a great plant, right? I don't care. Perfect plant to breed with. It has a great chem, it has chocolate notes, it has really interesting notes. But I remember, when it came to Michigan and Josie Wales was handing it out for free, and he was like, just give it out to everybody, right? It was like a big deal. He had a certain amount of cuts at his thing, and he handed them out, and it was like those memories, you know what I mean? Like Strawberry Cough always is a big one to me, right? Northern Lights number 5, because my guy, that's all he grew in college. Is that, Northern Lights. And one of my favorite stories is like when I met you at the Adam Dunn show, right? That was the best damn experience for what we're talking about. Like, that will never be encapsulated again. It's like the golden era of weed, when we had a 52 craziest people era. It was the first time I saw rosin when Fletcher pulled it out and was like, dude, this is rosin. And I'm like, what? Rosin? Switch to it. He was explaining to it. We took that. It was the first time I had seen that. First time I had met the Chem Dog guys and the Josh B's and all the guys.
OG, so many people. Many people.
And I remember Matt Berger, right, was there too with the Josh B Cuts Bubba Kush guy, right? And I remember I knew I was going to this thing because you had to be had won a cannabis cup at that time to be invited. I was one of the few people in Michigan who had won a cannabis cup because we only had two, right? We had the 2011, which is kind of weird. And then the 2014 was the big one, right? And then I won. And then the Radical Genetics guys came too. They were super cool guys, but Brian and Dave and all those guys. And, but I remember, specifically at that party, a little bit before that, there was a guy going around Michigan claiming he had the original Crippy, and he had the original Triangle Kush, and he had the original Gainesville Green. And it was one that they were talking about could be the OG Kush. Because remember that was that 16-hour episode on the show where they tried to figure out who the fucking OG Kush was from, and there was that Frank Gigak story, right? And then there was the Dave story.
Digging deep.
Right. And there's a whole bunch of stories. And I remember them. I'd listen to them and we talk about it. Who the fuck is this guy with a hydraulic thing below the fucking desert? He claimed to have Thai Afghani and all this crazy shit. And I'm just a new grower trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. Right. And finally you hear that it's just Josh D. He just renamed the plant from Florida. Right. That was it. It was the super knot. It wasn't even the Criffy. Everybody thought it was the Crippy, but it was this plant called the super knot. And he brought it to California and renamed it. But they were all talking about the Gainesville Green. So I found this Gainesville Green. I grew it out and I brought it to the Adam Dunn show to show the OG Kush dudes and Matt. And I brought it and I was like, hey, man, I just wanted to say that fucking OG Kush is my shit. And I grew this Gainesville Green to see if this is like really what you had. I found this now. And they pull it up and they're like, nah. They're like, nah, that's not even close. Not Gainesville Green, not what we remember at all. Just the terpenes, like you'll know instantly. Like you'll even know if it's a micro. I grew it well, so it wasn't like it was like some crap. Like I took some pride in it to take it a year, and it took me a year to get it and grow it. It doesn't. You don't just get it. You know what I mean? So those were always fun terp stories with that, right? That was fun with that bus. The DJ on the bus driving you around so you didn't know where you're going and something like that.
Yeah, that was back in the days when it was like you get in trouble for having those events. I remember the first one, they changed the venue right at the end, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they were talking about if somebody blew up this house, how they blow up the entire cannabis community. Like, if somebody set this house on fire, we'd all be gone. Like, stop it. Relax.
Yeah, those were good times. A lot of access to a lot of really cool stuff and really cool people who honestly, a lot of us hadn't even really met each other in person or outside the forum. I wasn't even in the forums, so I didn't know a lot of these guys. I was still an underground cat. But it was definitely a privilege. We had Adam on the show, and it was always good to talk about some of those stories.
Those were fun. Yeah, those are good times, man. Everybody, and the best part was like we all voted for the winner. So you know what I mean? We all kind of came to the conclusion in the end, like, yeah, that's the best one.
Dude, I mean, that was a true run what you brung. And when it came down to like the final, 5-10, it was all just total fire. And a lot of it was like from the breeders. So it was super cool experience.
Yeah, Ghost OG won first. The Doctor Who.
Yep, that Doctor Who from the guys in Oregon, the
Homegrown Natural Wonders, right?
Homegrown Natural Wonders, yep.
And I took third with the Sour OG. That was fun.
Which you gave me a little of when I was there, and it is oh so tasty.
Yeah, dude, that's a really good plant. I have to keep it around. I can't let it go. It's too special. It created the Stoned Owl, which is like one of my favorites that I had bred. It just is just a original like cedar wood meets like kerosene meets like a kind of like a sauna room. You know what I mean? It's got an interesting earthy background. It's original. It's original. Kelly Connection seed, he was kind of hated on there for a couple of years. So right around that time, I remember too.
Yeah, you and I were discussing. I still have some of those seeds from like 2008, 2009, Deadhead, Larry, Alien,
Jedi.
Yep.
He had the Jedi. He had some fire around those times, like a Count Valley Kush. Yeah, I had a
CBK, dude. I go watch this CBK, dude.
Yeah, that was
Shout out to Swerve, bro. Dude, you're always the homie.
I like Swerve. He was always been nice to me, man. Like whenever I've seen him, he's always been cool to me.
Dude, he's super cool to me. Every time I see him, I'm always shocked he remembers who I am. And he's like, bro, I've always known who you are.
He's a
shout out to Swerve.
Big social media scroller. He knows everybody. He watches a lot of shit. He's a good guy.
Yep.
But he's not even if he is a lot of drama. And he is like, I am the first OG Kush guy. Fuck Justy. I created it. It was an SFB back in fucking da-da-da-da. Right? Like, I've heard him yell that Josh isn't the guy, but I don't know. It's all good. Who the fuck cares anymore? That's all.
We all have our moments. I had mine earlier today.
The OG Kush is somebody else, right? It's DNA, and the one I got is them. And, like what is really, I made some crosses and stuff, but like I had a guy hit me up the other day in the DM who literally said to me, I'm going to take your shit and I'm going to cross with it and I'm not going to give you credit. What? How would you even contact me and say that? Like, okay, whatever. So, like, thank you for letting me know. Like, people are just weird sometimes, man.
It's gotten kind of strange in the last 7-8 years.
I mean, it's a plant, man. It's a fucking plant. Do some cool shit, find some cool terps. Let's smoke some good flower with it. Show me that you found the good pheno of your seeds. You know what I mean? Show me that it's different than something else and why it's special. That's really what I want. I want everybody to come out with like their own strain. You know what I mean? That would be like, everybody asks me, how do you set your garden apart from the other guy? Well, fucking take your favorite flavors and make something strange and show us what you like about weed. Why you're here, what the fuck you have to offer us. What's special do you have it? Like, if you were a microbrewery or something, somebody would say, what is special? And you wouldn't pull out Bud Light and say, I really like this Bud Light. I'm brewing it too. Like, what the fuck? That doesn't make sense. You create your own strain of bud, your own strain of weed, and your own strain of beer, and you call it what you call it, and it'd be your special little beer, or else you wouldn't survive because you can't sell Bud Light. Like, you know what I mean? You can't. Well, Miller Light, Natural Light, they're all the same. Coors Light, I guess they all taste kind of the same. But
I'll tell you what, man, we have quite a few international listeners, and I think that what you just said will really resonate with a lot of people.
It's like in here, right?
So many people trying different things, and with it kind of expanding globally now, I think we're going to start seeing a new golden age where people are breeding in with some of their local stuff. Maybe they're finding males in your stuff and breeding in with something down in South Africa or something in Afghanistan or any of these other places. So I'm, looking forward to that part of it.
I hope, because when I'm at like some of these events and I see some of these judges judging some of this shit and they never even smoked real Chemdog D, or, they've never smoked the real cut of Blue Dream, or like we were saying, you know what I mean? The real cuts of any of this stuff. It's hard to, or even the real cut of Skittles or something. It's an interesting position to be in because, a lot of these people, even in other countries and stuff, like, how do we get them the real OG Kush, the stuff that you came over and I'm smoking right here, right? Like, a lot of people never get to experience really good weed. And even if they get the genetics, like, they don't know, it's not always grown right. So, how do you get that out there, right? It's an interesting topic, right? That's what this whole podcast is about, right?
Hell yeah. Well, we might have to have you on again, because this was definitely a really fun conversation today, dude.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. I like talking.
Hell yeah.
Talking about weed. I like philosophizing about weed and flavors. So
bro, you had some great stories, man. I think our listeners will really enjoy it.
Thanks for having me on.
Hell yeah. Well, look, I appreciate you coming on, especially on short notice today. We're definitely going to have you back on one of these days. And this was big for us because you are our first out of studio on-camera guest. So for me, this was a big one. A little bit of technical stuff, but next time we'll have it more fired up. But as always, I appreciate you. Where can we find your genetics online or all your stuff? Give us the websites and the plug, and then we'll cut away.
Seeds here now, or Seed Bank International, right? It's midnightsmoking.com is my tips and my papers. MidnightRoots.com is like for all Midnight Roots chocolate products and flowers in Michigan. Same as Instagram, midnight.roots and midnight.smoking. And then Stone Owl, stoneowl.co is my music, or Stone Owl on Instagram is pretty much where you can find my stuff. And or you can please hit me up if you have any questions, or you have you want to get clones. You can hit me up at midnight.roots, or hit me up at jake@midnightroots.com. And if you have a metrics place in Michigan and you're really interested in seeing my genetics and what I do, that's what I really like. Pheno hunting, man. That's really what I found is the thing. And like I said, I appreciate you and appreciate you appreciating what I've been doing. I still want to try your version of the smoked catfish, the pheno.
We're gonna get it to you, man. I told you the story how the state troopers killed it, and luckily they didn't take a plant away, so my buddy cut a clone off it. But we will have it back to you. It survived for a reason, but we're gonna get it back to you.
That's exciting, man. Pheno is like that,
No, it's totally unique and different. I've grown so many different things over the years, and I've never seen anything like it. So, and it was funny because when I saw your catfish, I could definitely taste the nuances from the parent, but there was definitely other things as well. So, well, thank you for coming on today. We appreciate you. Go check out Midnight Roots. And as always, peace out from the Jug Den.